Revealed 4 shocking carbs to never eat after 60, and 4 amazing ones that transform your health. Karen sat in the doctor's office, fists clenched, as numbers swam before her eyes. Her blood sugar levels, once a mere footnote in her life, now bore the weight of consequences that felt insurmountable. Pasta nights with her family, her mother's biscuits still warm from the oven. These were threads that wove the fabric of her life. But that very fabric now threatened to unravel as the words diabetes loomed like a dark cloud, ready to rain on her cherished moments with her grandchildren. Everything she held dear seemed to teeter on the edge of oblivion. She realized with stunning clarity that her love for her mother's recipes was tangled dangerously with her health. Each bite of pasta, every sweet treat, echoed with laughter, but now whispered dread. How could she reconcile these memories with the grim numbers scribbled in the report? As she drove home, the weight of her family's culinary legacy pressed down, suffocating the freedom she felt in those shared dinners. Would the warmth of her kitchen be replaced by the sterile clinks of a diabetes-friendly meal? The thought of not having the energy to hop around with her grandchildren, or worse, missing out on baking with them, terrified her. She craved not just the taste of her mother's food, but the comfort and connection it brought. Were those moments gone forever? With internal conflict bubbling within her, she resolved to change. Dusting off the time-worn recipe book filled with her mother's scribbles, she turned the pages gingerly, feeling the warmth of nostalgia wrapped in tendrils of anxiety. Could she really turn her beloved recipes into something health-conscious without forsaking their memory? In this storm of emotions, Karen sought wisdom from Jack, a local nutritionist. Their first meeting felt overwhelming, a collision of hope and fear. "Just try these alternatives," he suggested, introducing grains and grains she barely recognized. Karen felt pride battling with desperation. How could she change? As she left his office, doubts swirled. What if her attempts turned her kitchen into a battleground? She began experimenting, transforming old favorites into healthy versions. But as she chopped broccoli for the first time, the nostalgia of her mother's rich Alfredo sauce weighed heavily. Memories flashed, family dinners brimming with laughter, the buzz of loved ones talking over plates of spaghetti. Could a quinoa salad ever hold that magic? Family gatherings turned tense. Her grandchildren arrived with wide eyes, expecting gooey macaroni and cheese, eager for the sugary treats. Karen's heart raced, heavy with dread, as she introduced zucchini spaghetti and gluten-free muffins. Faces fell, forks hesitated midair. The air grew thick, her effort met with whispers of disappointment that wrapped around her like a warm, suffocating blanket. Was this journey of love and care pulling her family apart? As autumn leaves danced outside, Karen faced a profound test one pivotal Sunday evening. She laid out her creations, the once sacred scents mingled now with uncertainty. Would they embrace her labor of love, or would they cling desperately to the memories she was trying to transform? Her heart thudded, a silent question loomed. Was she navigating this path toward health alone, or would her family share in her journey? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the world outside turned auburn, the tension at the dinner table climbed. Each bite she watched her family take, a test of acceptance, a test of nurturing. Would her love be wrapped in these new flavors, or would it be rejected, struck down by old traditions and cherished comfort? Could she redefine familial love through health, or would this desperate attempt shatter the very foundation of her warm gatherings? The evening grew heavier, stealing moments of breath as she braced herself for their response, her heart thumping with every uncertain glance, awaiting judgment, hoping for acceptance. Silence enveloped the dining room, heavy and uncertain, as Karen peered at her family with fading hope. The table, a landscape of vibrant greens and earthy hues, seemed alien compared to the warm, inviting spread of old. Her grandchildren exchanged puzzled looks, their confusion a dagger to her heart. How had something intended to nourish them turned into a source of discomfort? Karen's resolve wavered, and in that agonizing moment, the question that had haunted her since her diagnosis surfaced. Was she doing this for them or herself? She had plunged head first, believing she could orchestrate a healthier future without surrendering her roots. Yet with every disenchanted fork and furrowed brow, she grappled with the daunting possibility that their delighted laughter might be lost to her newly embraced ideals. Sweeping her gaze around the table, she observed expressions of dejection. Her son, once a fervent supporter of her cooking, studied his plate with a grimace. Her daughter-in-law, accustomed to welcoming plates of nostalgia, hesitated before trying the zucchini creation. Each moment of silence coiled tighter around her, amplifying her insecurities. Had her love for them led her blind into this culinary minefield? As the last rays of sun melted into twilight outside, Karen's mind crackled with introspection. She envisioned her family's communication, embedded in the comfort of shared meals, woven through familiar flavors that strummed the chords of belonging. Was she losing the very essence of that connection? Anguish churned in her stomach as she watched her grandchildren push their forks away, dismissing the avenues of affection she hoped to create. Yet, amid the disappointment, flickers of resolve reignited within her. Perhaps this wasn't simply a battle of flavors, but an opportunity, a chance to spark their curiosity and rebuild familial bonds around healthier choices. With clarity cutting through the fog of anxiety, she contemplated the possibility of involving them in her journey, transforming the kitchen back into a playground of discovery rather than a battleground. "What if we cooked together?" she suggested suddenly, a mix of trepidation and eagerness bubbling in her voice. "I know this isn't what you expected, but I could use your help in finding ways to make these healthier meals more exciting." The room stilled, uncertainty hanging in the air, but slowly a glimmer of interest sparked in her grandchildren's eyes. Her son leaned forward, brow furrowing in deep thought. "We could try different recipes, maybe even come up with our own." Eager anticipation coursed through her veins. This was the shift she needed, a transparent approach where her family might engage and redefine meals together. It was her chance to bridge the gap between love and health, nostalgia and nourishment. Maybe, just maybe, they could forge a new legacy together. As laughter began to seep back into the atmosphere, Karen's heart swelled. This was their journey as much as hers. The kitchen could once again become a safe haven, a sanctuary where culinary explorations merged with family ties. They could laugh, stumble, and learn just as she had, making memories anew. But while hope flickered, uncertainty lingered. Could they truly embrace this change together? Would her grandchildren maintain the buoyancy of their spirits as they traversed a landscape rich in vegetables instead of sweets? The thought whirled in her mind, a tantalizing fusion of fear and excitement. In the weeks that followed, they set forward with careful enthusiasm, experimenting and crafting dishes that delighted both their taste buds and their senses. Yet, amid the laughter and efforts to connect, deeper challenges arose. Old habits clashed with new realities, sparking friction in the fabric of their changed tradition. As the season wore on, battles over ingredients and preferences surfaced, expectations tethered to jasmine-scented recipes clashing with the bold ambitions to revitalize their culinary heritage. Each home-cooked meal now simmered with latent tension, testing her resolve and their commitment. Faced with these mounting conflicts, Karen found herself at a precipice, one that could reshape their connection forever. Would her family's resolve withstand the complexities of change, or would they return to the allure of simplicity that once enveloped them? Tomorrow loomed as a fresh start, a testing ground of evolution. The moment of truth awaited. Would she confront what lay beneath their culinary preferences, Or would those cherished traditions drown out the new love she sought to cultivate? The next day arrived like a slow-moving storm, the air thick with unvoiced anxieties. Karen stood before her kitchen counter early in the morning, the vibrant assortment of vegetables nearly glaring at her under the harsh light. A wave of doubt washed over her as she contemplated the day ahead. Would today merely be an extension of yesterday's frustrations, or could it finally lead to a breakthrough? With a sharp inhale, she gathered her resolve. Today, she would address the underlying currents of resistance that had threatened to derail her vision of healthier meals. Her family needed to understand the why behind the changes, not just the what. It was more than about nutrients. It was about family, tradition, and most importantly, her own transformation. The children arrived for their weekend ritual, eyes bright with a mix of excitement and uncertainty. As each child entered the kitchen, she noticed their hesitations, their casual glances at the spread of kale and quinoa. If she was going to include them in this journey, she realized, she needed to approach them as allies rather than as commanders holding the burden of change. "All right, team," she declared, signaling a freshness to the meeting. "I have some ideas I think you'll love, but first, let's talk about what we enjoy. What do you all love to eat, and how can we take those flavors into a healthier direction?" Silence hung for a moment, and Karen felt her heart race as she struggled to keep the fear of rejection at bay. Then, her youngest granddaughter, Lily, piped up. "I really like pizza." "Pizza, yes! What if we made a veggie-packed version of it?" Karen suggested, excitement punctuating her words. "Would you be willing to help me come up with toppings we like? We can even use whole grain dough." As several ideas erupted, energy surged through the conversation. Before long, Lily proposed a twist on the traditional recipe, blending in roasted peppers and mushrooms. Karen watched as her family discussed different flavors and combinations, wrestling with how their past meals could evolve instead of fade away. But as they brainstormed, deeper issues began to emerge. Karen felt a twinge of anxiety creep in as her son Jake remarked, "I just don't know if I can give up cheese. It feels like I'd be losing something important." His words struck at the core of her journey. Here was her son, the one who had once idolized her comfort food, grappling with surrendering something he held dear. "Jake, what if we find a way to keep some cheese, but use it more as a spice rather than the main ingredient?" she offered. It was a delicate balance she hoped he would consider, adapting rather than abolishing. This moment felt pivotal. Would his acceptance of her suggestion, and by extension her vision, lead them to compromise? Or would his stubbornness stand as a barrier against the change she wished for? With renewed determination, Karen hugged the idea of compromise tightly. Each culinary creation could be a conversation between past and future, where love wasn't dismissed, but rather transformed into a new recipe for connection. As they began chopping ingredients and rolling dough, laughter filled the kitchen, but Karen's mind buzzed with the gravity of the moment. She could feel the faint bitterness of unfulfilled traditions mixing with the sweetness of cooperation. Yet, as they honed in on dessert, Karen's mind swirled back to fears unspoken. Would their efforts simmer down to a fleeting thrill for the sake of novelty? Or would the struggle to balance old and new flavors lead to a more profound conflict? What would happen when it came time to serve the meal, revealing choices made under the guise of culinary creativity? Suddenly, the question weighed heavily on her. Could she truly lead them forward, or would her efforts backfire, leaving her to witness a retreat into familiarity? The kitchen felt both exhilarating and perilous, a battleground for beliefs and tastes that threatened to unravel everything she had worked so hard to build. Tomorrow loomed like a whispered promise. Would the dinner reveal the triumph of unity or the shackles of refrozen habits? The next meal awaited, and its outcome could change everything. Karen awoke the following morning with a mixture of trepidation and a spark of excitement flaring beneath the surface. The sun streamed in through the kitchen window, casting warm rays on the remnants of last night's culinary experiment, remnants of teamwork and collaboration strewn across the counter. Today, the moment of truth awaited. The realization that her family's acceptance hinged on this meal was an impending storm cloud that motivated her to act with intention. As she moved through the steps of meal preparation, Karen's thoughts raced. She had spent hours thoughtfully researching menus, even seeking out recipes that would give a nod to their comfort food staples while carefully weaving in healthier ingredients. Just how much would the balance shift? Would they embrace the new flavors, or would nostalgia lead them back to old habits? The time came for them to gather around the table. The children took their seats, and Karen placed the pizza, a vibrant arrangement of colors, before them. Vegetables adorned the surface like jewels, saying as much about creativity as it did about the choices they'd made together. The aroma was inviting, but deep inside, Karen felt the lingering uncertainty. "All right, everyone," she began, her voice steady yet laced with tension. "This isn't just a meal. It's about trying something new together. I want to hear what you think, and if the flavors resonate with you." Lily beamed eagerly, her enthusiasm infectious as she reached for a slice. Karen noticed Jake's hesitant gaze linger on the plate as he scrutinized the toppings, searching for remnants of his familiar preferences. As they took their first bites, silence embraced the room, the only disruption being the crunch of crust. Karen's heart raced, her eyes flitting between their expressions. She envisioned each reaction as a potential turning point in their family narrative, a key to broader change or a withdrawal to the familiar. Then it happened. Lily squealed, her face alight with joy. "This is so good. Can we make it again?" Her exclamation fractured the tension. It was the spark Karen had desperately wanted to ignite. Yet Jake's participation was more cautious. "I guess it's okay, but the cheese," he mumbled, glancing at the modest sprinkle over his slice. "I just liked when it was, all over everything." Karen's resolve eroded slightly as she recalled her conversation with him about adaptation. This was more than a food choice. It echoed deeper truths about transitions and acceptance. Would he ever embrace this shift, or was he rooted in a loyalty to simpler, beloved meals? "Let's talk about it," she urged, lowering her voice as if she were navigating through fragile ground. "What do you miss most from our classic pizzas? Maybe there's a way we can meet in the middle?" He hesitated, the shadows of reluctance flickering across his eyes. Finally, he confessed, It feels like giving up a piece of home." Her heart fluttered. Here was the hidden battle she hadn't fully anticipated, an emotional stronghold disguised within food preferences. "I understand, but what if we think of this as adding flavor to our home? We're not losing it, we're expanding it." In that moment, a connection sparked, a realization beyond the meal. They were grappling with their identities as a family, recognizing that change didn't require abandonment but rather adaptability. After the meal concluded, applause erupted as the children applauded their collective effort. Yet even amidst their joy, a question loomed in the back of Karen's mind. Was this a genuine victory, or merely a momentary reprieve before confronting potential backlash against change? Even as she cleaned up, the weight of uncertainty settled heavily on her shoulders. Tomorrow brought the opportunity for deeper dialogues, not just about food, but about their shared past and hopes for the future. What was it she was truly asking them to give up? And more importantly, what could they gain instead? Her thoughts hummed with determination and vulnerability. The next chapter would be as daunting as it was pivotal. Could she break through Jake's defenses, or would she unravel the fabric of their familial bonds, attempting to spark genuine acceptance of her vision? One thing was certain, she was ready to face the storm. The next morning, sunlight filtered through the curtains, illuminating Karen's kitchen with a promise of fresh beginnings. Yet, instead of the eagerness that usually accompanied a new day, an anxious knot twisted in her stomach. The victory of the previous night felt deceptively fragile. Just one conversation could unravel the delicate progress she had made with Jake. Determined to build on the moment, she took her first full sip of coffee, feeling the warmth seep through her. She opened her laptop, casting her gaze toward the empty breakfast table, where conversations fluttered like shadows. It was time to deepen the dialogue. What had begun as a culinary shift must evolve into a broader exploration of values and assumptions. Karen set to work drafting an informal plan, a list of key topics she wanted to bring up at breakfast. Food had served as the initial catalyst, but now she needed to address the undercurrents of fear and nostalgia. For Jake, food was not just sustenance. It was layered with memories and connections. The challenge lay in articulating this significance while acknowledging the necessity for change. With her plan forming, Karen visited her notes from the previous discussions with Jake, her reflection revealing pieces of unspoken truth. His reluctance seemed linked to their family's past, those long evenings spent bonding over pizza, the casual chaos of movie nights, and the laughter born from shared indulgences. This wasn't merely resistance to her culinary choices. It was, in essence, a fear of losing connection. She envisioned laying all of this before him, yet another knot formed in her gut. What if he felt cornered or attacked? Their relationship shifted daily, but she couldn't bear losing the thread of trust they had woven. A deep breath steadied her as she made her way to the table, readying herself for what lay ahead. As the children trickled in for breakfast, Karen greeted them with cheery smiles, masking her apprehension beneath layers of enthusiasm. She concocted a fruit and yogurt breakfast bar, a blend of familiar fruits with an inviting presentation. Health was the focus, lightening the atmosphere with bright colors and natural sweetness. While Lily dove into the spread, Jake hesitated at the threshold of his usual breakfast expectations. Karen took that moment to bridge the distance. "Hey, Jake, how about we talk a little today?" she prompted, guiding him toward the table. "What about?" he inquired, his tone cautious but open. "I was thinking about our pizza discussion yesterday. It got me wondering how we could approach meals together, what they mean for us. I want us all to feel like we can put a piece of ourselves into what we eat." He frowned, brow furrowing as he sank into a chair. "You mean by adding more vegetables? It's just not what we know," she pressed on, insistent yet gentle. "I know, but what if we can keep the things we love about those meals while creating new ones with different touches? Could it work?" The silence that followed dripped with uncertainty. Karen watched as he wrestled with the words on the tip of his tongue. It was a dance of resistance and reflection, but she sensed a crack beginning to form in the wall he had built. A blossoming curiosity buried amid his mistrust. "What do you mean, a piece of ourselves?" Jake asked, a hint of intrigue piercing through his earlier defenses. This was the opening she needed. "Maybe we're all asking for something more than just food on our plates. It's about how we say home when we gather together. So I want your ideas. Let's create meals that keep our past while growing into something else." As her words hung in the air, Karen could feel a shift, like the subtle turn of wind. A vulnerable yearning to protect their future sparked in her chest. Yet, there lay the uncertainty surrounding Jake's response, his willingness to truly collaborate, to trust in her vision of transformation. With each bite of fruit and yogurt that Lily indulged in, the dynamics at the table began to twist. The meal shifted from a simple breakfast to a canvas for connection, providing Jake with the space to reshape his reflections. She could feel the tension ebb, yet questions unfurled in her mind. Would he take that step toward understanding, or would he retreat to the safety of the past, choosing familiarity over the craving for something new? Just as the thought began to settle, Jake's eyes met hers, and she sensed the possibility of a breakthrough. His hesitant smile was a question mark. Could he really engage with this? As Karen leaned back, holding her breath in anticipation, she knew she would have to be ready for whatever came next. Each moment felt crucial, the stakes rising in an unspoken pact. With their family's history at hand and the future teetering on uncertainty, what truths would be unearthed in the unfolding discussion? Jake's gaze lingered on Karen as if searching for something just out of reach. The breakfast table, once a battleground of habit and expectation, transformed into an arena of potential. Inside her, doubts swelled. Could she maintain this momentum, or would he revert to the security of their old familiar routines? "Okay," he said slowly, words forming with cautious deliberation. "Let's talk." Relief washed over her, but a deeper, more pressing question gnawed at her. What would his version of talk entail? Would it be constructive, or would the unresolved tensions of their relationship bubble over into defensiveness? She nodded, steeling herself for the emotional journey ahead. "You know how we talked about our memories with certain meals? What if we honored those memories, but also started a new chapter, one that reflects where we want to go? Starting with, what? A new way to make pizza?" Jake replied, a hint of sarcasm creeping into his tone. Karen felt her resolve quiver. Humor had been Jake's shield against vulnerability, a distraction she had grown all too familiar with. "No, not just the pizza, Jake. I'm talking about every meal. Each dish can tell a different story, one that could bring in the memories of family night while embracing healthier choices." She fought to keep the excitement from morphing into desperation, eyes wide with an unwavering dream of connection. Lily interjected, keenly aware of the tension building. "Can we have veggie pizza?" She grinned. Karen smiled back, grateful for her daughter's innocence and optimism. Jake looked at Lily, then returned his focus to Karen, irritation swirling behind his brow. "But why do we need to change?" The question struck harder than she anticipated. It wasn't just about food, was it? It was about change permeating their lives, intent to grow when they had long established comfort and predictability. He was asking not for a recipe, but for reassurance. Because, Jake, it's about health, and it's about making sure we're setting strong examples for them. She gestured towards Lily, who hungrily piled more fruit atop her yogurt. "But it's also about us feeling alive in the kitchen, sharing experiences that reflect who we are becoming as a family. Doesn't that intrigue you?" Jake's lips pressed into a line, and Karen could almost see the wheels turning in his head. He was grappling not just with the proposal, but with the simmering discomfort of uncertainty. Karen's heart raced, urging her to uncover deeper truths, even if it meant cracking this thin veneer of resistance. Instead of forcing the conversation, she chose to invite. "What do you think we could do that would feel comfortable for you, yet also allow room for growth? Is there a dish you think we could adapt together?" A flicker of curiosity brightened his expression, momentarily displacing his skepticism. "Maybe, I don't know, lasagna. We always made that. But with spinach instead of all that meat?" The suggestion sparked something within Karen. They could build on this, layer by layer, just as they had done with that hearty family staple. "That's perfect. Spinach can add a whole new texture. Plus, we can experiment with spices." A crack formed in Jake's defenses. He leaned in, interest swirling in his eyes. "Okay, so what else should we try?" The shift in his demeanor was palpable. They were transitioning from confrontation to collaboration, breathing new life into an ingrained routine. Karen seized the moment, a rush of optimism surging through her. "What about a stir-fry? We can use all sorts of vegetables, maybe with chicken or tofu, and create our sauce together. Each of us could contribute something different." The walls that had once seemed impenetrable now trembled under the weight of newfound possibilities. With each exchange, Karen felt a sense of purpose, a burgeoning strength that intertwined with her vulnerability. This was what she had yearned for, an opportunity to engage not just with Jake, but with their shared aspirations and fears. Yet shadows loomed. As breakthroughs emerged, the silence that followed implied untold concerns. Would this collaboration bloom into something sustainable, or might it collapse back into habit and resistance when faced with greater challenges? Jake's hesitant smile faded as he gazed beyond her, absorbing the gravity of what lay ahead. "Can we really do this?" he murmured, not looking for food, but for reassurance that their relationship could transform. Karen leaned closer, her heart pounding with the weight of their intertwined possibilities. "We can, but it'll take work. Together." As her words echoed, uncertainty lingered, twisting like smoke in the air. Change was a jigsaw, a puzzle to assemble through patience and trust. Was she prepared for the deeper conversations that awaited them, and the unveiling of long-buried fears that could surface in the process? Ready to delve into the uncharted waters, they both understood the stakes were rising. With each culinary experiments, revelations would follow, and she knew she had to brace herself for what might be uncovered in their next step. The challenge loomed, but so did the potential for growth. Karen couldn't shake off an unsettling premonition. What truths would emerge when they recommitted to discovering themselves beyond the confines of their meals? As they began to sketch the contours of their renewed journey, Karen felt a tingling sense of possibility. The idea of adapting old favorites ignited something within her, a dormant creativity. She could see it evolving, blending nostalgia with necessity, but the complexities of the past shadowed each step forward. Jake's interest ebbed and flowed like tidewater, the initial enthusiasm shifting to contemplation, uncertainty clouding his expressions. His skepticism of change flickered in the way he absently stacked the syrupy fruit atop his yogurt. Could he truly embrace this shift, or was he simply seeking the comfort of their routines? "Can we make it more of a family thing?" he asked, breaking the silence, his eyes drifting toward Lily. The question was loaded, the innocence of their child, a double-edged sword illuminating the enormity of his hesitance. "Absolutely. We can make dinner prep a family affair," she replied, feeling a rush of validation. "Imagine us chopping vegetables together, each giving input. We can turn every meal into a lesson, a celebration of collaboration." Yet the more she spoke, his brow furrowed deeper. It was as if she was asking him to abandon his footing, to relinquish the control that had kept them safely anchored through the years. It struck her with a jolt. What if he didn't want to navigate these uncharted waters with her? A knot twisted inside her stomach. Fear clawed at her thoughts. Would he withdraw again, retreating to the quiet comfort of familiarity? With every progressive step, she realized that their journey would also force re-examinations of past grievances. Old wounds bubbled just beneath the surface, risking exposure as the two of them worked together. Hesitant, Jake set down his spoon. "But are we doing this because we want to? Or because we feel we have to? I mean, do we really need to change just because we think we're supposed to?" An unexpected curveball, one she hadn't anticipated. His directness sent her heart racing. Was he questioning her intentions? It felt like a challenge, a confrontation with the unspoken doubts she struggled to keep at bay. Karen took a breath, harnessing the weight of his words. "I believe that change is part of growth. We've established a rhythm that feels safe, but it's also begun to feel stagnant. I don't want us to remain static. I want us to evolve, for ourselves and for Lily." "But what if we just made small adjustments?" Jake suggested, a flicker of resistance in his tone. "Not everything has to be a complete overhaul. Can't we honor our past while adding some healthier tweaks without diving headfirst? It feels overwhelming." She felt the tug-of-war within her, her desire for comprehensive transformation clashing with his need for stability. A wave of empathy washed over her. Change could be intimidating, especially when it involved revising a deeply ingrained identity. "We can start small. We don't have to take giant leaps right away." Her tone softened as she tried to offer him a lifeline. "How about we try one new dish each week? Just one. That's manageable, right?" Jake's posture relaxed incrementally, his shoulders dropping as if a weight lifted. "Okay, one dish. I can agree to that." But just as a smile began to form on her face, an uneasy thought crept in. Was this merely a compromise to make her feel at ease? Would one dish keep him engaged, or merely halt the momentum before they even started? Karen studied his face, hunting for signs of sincerity. Beneath the acceptance lay an undercurrent of fear. What if that singular agreement meant he would approach their meals with reluctance, dragging his feet each time they gathered in the kitchen? "I'm glad," she offered, her voice firm with hope. "And we can keep the conversation open. If we find it isn't enough, we can adapt again." As her words hung in the air, she felt a crackle of anticipation. There was still so much tethered beneath the surface, so many truths still shrouded in uncertainty. Karen yearned for this journey of discovery to flourish, not just in their meals, but in their bond itself. Lily, sensing the shift, perked up. "Can we make it fun, like a cooking show?" she piped up, lightening the moment and bringing a spark of joy that enveloped the atmosphere. "Yes, a little competition could add some spice," Karen replied, grinning at her daughter's boundless energy. Jake chuckled, but a shadow returned to his eyes. "All right then, what if we get creative with the challenge? We each pick a theme for our dish." As they bounced ideas across the table, Karen felt alive, the possibilities kindling a warmth that had long eluded her. Yet even as laughter filled the air and the conversation flowed, an intrusive unease swirled in her mind. Every breakthrough carried a weight, a juxtaposition against the normalcy they craved. What if their culinary experiments ultimately revealed more than just flavors? Would their attempts shed light on deeper cracks hidden in their partnership? The stakes had risen, and the potential for transformation lingered like a barely detectable tension. Would their endeavor spark genuine growth or unravel the fabric of their established lives? With every slice and dice, secrets awaited discovery, and Karen couldn't shake the feeling that the kitchen wasn't the only place needing renovation. Could they truly sustain this evolution, or were they destined to retreat into old patterns once more? Karen awoke the next morning with an invigorating sense of purpose, a stark contrast to the shadows of uncertainty that lingered from the night before. The kitchen felt like a blank canvas, a place where boundaries could stretch and creativity could flourish. Each familiar appliance stood as a promise, urging her to reimagine the routine that had become stale over time. As she began gathering ingredients for the day's cooking challenge, a stirring realization seized her. This was more than just about food. It was about control, or lack thereof, and the patterns that had formed over years. Jake's penchant for stability wasn't just about dinner. It was rooted in a deeper fear of change, and she had to tread carefully. Change had become an abstract idea, one that shimmered with potential but also glimmered with fear. Putting her passion for cooking to work, she drafted a list of potential theme dishes to propose. The ideas swirled in her mind: Mexican fiesta, Italian heritage, and a twist on classic comfort food. Each theme held significance, emotional ties that bridged the past and the present. She envisioned how each theme could draw their family closer, helping them to explore not just new flavors, but new ways of being with one another. With a determined heart, Karen approached Jake, who had retreated into his newspaper, the pages crackling under his fingers. "I was thinking," she started, her voice steady, "about our cooking theme. I have some ideas we could explore together." He looked up, an eyebrow arched skeptically. "I'm in," he replied, but the tone was matter-of-fact, lacking the excitement she had hoped for. "But let's keep it practical. It can't get too elaborate." Disappointment restrained her enthusiasm, yet the flicker of opportunity remained. Perhaps this was her chance to meet him halfway, to coax him toward embracing a small portion of the unknown. "Practical is good," she said carefully, aware of her own limitations. "But we can still make it fun. What about putting a twist on something like spaghetti with a homemade sauce?" His expression faltered, a mix of intrigue and reluctance deepening the lines of his forehead. "You mean, we add zucchini to the sauce?" he quipped, a hint of sarcasm creeping into his tone. She stifled the urge to recoil at his dismissiveness. "No, I mean we could explore how different cultures add spices or ingredients. Like, what if we did an Italian dish with a Middle Eastern flair? It could be wholesome and unexpected." For a moment, silence engulfed them. Jake stared past her, the gears visibly turning in his mind. Karen's breath caught as she silently willed him to see the possibilities. Would the challenge of unfamiliar flavors spark his interest, or would he retreat to the comfort of his predictable palate? He leaned back, arms crossing over his chest, an indication that he was not entirely sold on the idea. "I can handle one twist, but not too many. I like what I know." This revelation resonated deeply. It wasn't simply about modifying dinner. It was about the broader implications of embracing change. Every revised recipe represented a step toward confronting their fears. Perhaps, Karen urged herself, this challenge could catalyze more than flavor exploration. What if it altered their dynamic, opening lines of communication that had been stifled by complacency? Taking a leap, she pressed forward. "I know it can feel overwhelming to step away from the usual, but think about this. What if tackling each theme could help us chart a new course together? A way to have deeper conversations, to address those grievances we often avoid." His brow furrowed more, revealing vulnerability. Could they confront deeper issues masked as culinary indecision? The discomfort of vulnerability threaded its way into their conversation, and as she laid her heart on the table, she sensed a shift. Jake ran a hand through his hair, his defenses lowering slightly. "You think that cooking together can achieve all that? It's just food after all." "Is it?" Karen challenged, her pulse quickening with conviction. "Food binds us. It carries history, traditions, memories. This could be a crucial step toward understanding each other better. Maybe we're both too stubborn to admit that." Bleak honesty hung between them, poised to unfold. This pivotal moment could either lead them closer or open wounds anew. Was she ready to confront the chaos of their relationship, a realm that made the kitchen's complexity seem paltry? Watching Jake wrestle with the possibilities, she felt excitement and dread coiling in her stomach. Would he meet her halfway, or was this just another step toward stagnation? "Let's prepare our first themed dish tonight," she proposed, her heart racing. "And while we cook, let's talk. Not just about the meal, but about everything. Our past grievances, our hopes, everything." Jake's initial hesitance faded, leaving a contemplative silence that echoed louder than any agreement. What lay ahead teetered on the edge of thrilling unpredictability or daunting confrontation. The stakes had risen, and Karen realized they were not merely cooking. They were carving out new paths in their lives and relationship. Unable to read his expressions, she contemplated her next move. The chance to face their underlying tensions lay directly in the saucepot, simmering, waiting to be stirred. As she turned to begin the preparation, Karen's heart thudded with anticipation. The kitchen held both the hope of new beginnings and the risk of old grievances bubbling up. This culinary journey had become a portal to deeper truths. What would they uncover when they mixed these ingredients, not just of food, but of vulnerability? The temperature in the room heated further, and she could only wonder, would they emerge transformed, or would the pressure build into a rupture neither had fully prepared for? The evening promised revelations, and Karen steeled herself for an inevitable confrontation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the kitchen, Karen set out to gather the items from her carefully curated list. This was no ordinary night. As she meticulously arranged the ingredients on the countertop, she realized that each item represented not merely a path to a meal, but a potential opening to deep discussions, the very conversations that had drifted further into silence over the years. With every chop of the vegetables, she felt a release of pent-up emotions. Oppression and hope clashed violently within her. The act of cooking was an act of rebellion against the stasis that had taken hold of their lives. Each knife stroke was a subtle declaration that she would no longer accept a life limited by fear, hers or Jake's. "All right, let's start with the spices," she announced brightly, trying to rally both their spirits. The more she immersed herself in the cooking, the lighter her heart felt. Perhaps, just perhaps, this would ignite a spark in Jake that had long been dimmed. Jake entered the kitchen, his hands buried in his pockets, wearing an expression of cautious curiosity. "What are we making exactly?" he asked, diverting his gaze toward the array of spices lined against the back wall. "It's a surprise," she replied with a teasing smile. "But it starts with a touch of cumin and coriander." She could sense the tension softening slightly, like a cooling breeze on a hot day, and emboldened by the shift, she continued. I thought we'd do a fusion of Italian and Middle Eastern, spaghetti with spiced tomato sauce and a fresh herb salad. He raised an eyebrow but remained silent. Was it skepticism or mere contemplation? Karen pushed her doubts aside. She needed his engagement, not his judgment. Do you remember that little Italian place we used to go to? She prompted as she began to stir the sauce. They had this incredible spicy arrabbiata, but with a hint of za'atar in the back. Yeah, I remember, he replied, almost lost in thought. His expression wavered between nostalgia and reluctance. But what if it doesn't turn out right? What if it's too different? Something shifted in Karen then. The fear she often felt was mirrored in his uncertainty, but she refused to let it control her. What if it's fantastic? What if it could surprise us? With a deep breath, she faced him, determination flooding every fiber of her being. Jake, I've spent years holding our lives to a predictable rhythm. We need this. We can't let our fears dictate our palate or our lives anymore. A silence enveloped them. His brow furrowed slightly, as if weighing her words. It wasn't mere cooking anymore. It was a dance of vulnerability and willingness. Okay, he finally said, taking a step into the kitchen, his voice a mix of resignation and newfound hope. Let's do this. As they began to work side by side, Karen felt an electric undercurrent of possibility. Each stir of the pot, the sizzle of onions, the intoxicating aroma seeping through the air wasn't just about flavors. It was a catalytic moment, a turning point steering them both toward a different horizon. Yet, as they progressed, small tensions remained just beneath the surface. Each question about their past or shared memories forced Karen and Jake to confront discomforts they had swept under the rug for too long. The intimate closeness that the act of cooking brought also unlatched a door to unresolved conflict, and Karen questioned whether she was truly prepared to face the profound truths hiding behind culinary metaphors. Why haven't we talked about it? Karen blurted out, her heart racing at the vulnerability. Why haven't we tackled the tough things, like our hopes or fears? Jake met her gaze, the walls of his defenses crumbling. I guess I thought we could just go on, pretend everything is fine. It's easier. But Karen could feel the weight of that admission resonating in the air. The room was charged, each ingredient simmering not just on the stove, but between them in unsaid words and desires. What if we face it all tonight? She proposed, emboldened by their joint effort. He hesitated, a flicker of fear crossing his expression. The kitchen's warmth felt suddenly stifling, as if the air had thickened with the weight of their unspoken truths. Do we have to? Only if we want to evolve, to step beyond our comfort. With a deep inhale, Jake's shoulders sank as he pondered her words. The evening stretched on, the spaghetti cooking, the sauce thickening. And in the back of her mind, Karen wondered if the night would lead them to warmth or turmoil. As flames danced absent-mindedly behind them, she sensed they stood at a precipice, not just of a meal, but of their relationship. Would they reach a new understanding, or would the night reveal vulnerabilities they were not yet ready to face? A question lingered in the warm, fragrant air, standing as the very first step toward clarity or disaster. Would they dare to confront what lay buried beneath the surface of their seemingly simple dish? The evening unfolded as Karen and Jake cooked together, the vegetables sautéing in fragrant spices, filling the kitchen with a warmth that reflected both the food and the growing intimacy between them. As the steam lifted in swirls, so too did the tension from their shoulders. Each stir of the sauce melded old traditions with new intentions, encouraging them to blend not just their respective culinary skills, but their emotional landscapes. Remember when we first tried making that spicy arrabbiata? Jake posed out of the blue, his brow still furrowed in thought. How we combined flavors without worrying about the exact measurements? That shared memory offered a sliver of hope, a buoy amid the uncertainty. Yes, we got messy, and it was fun, Karen recalled, her heart swelling at the nostalgia. We didn't connect it with perfection, it was about the experience itself. That was different, he retorted gently, a shadow crossing his features. We were still younger, less burdened by responsibilities or expectations. A part of her wanted to retreat at his mention of expectations. How had life crept in to dilute their spontaneity? But maybe the beauty of change is that we can redefine those expectations, explore new avenues together, she countered, leaning against the counter, allowing her vulnerability to bridge the gap between them. Jake paused, considering her words. What if I said I'm scared of pursuing this path, of changing what we've built together? She felt a pang of empathy. His words illuminated the lingering concerns that had simmered just below the surface for years. Then let's confront that fear together. We can't stay stuck just to avoid discomfort, she implored. He sighed, the tension etched onto his face. I want our meals to hold our memories, but I dread losing them if we force too much change. Jake, Karen responded earnestly, evolution doesn't equate to erasure. We can honor our past while growing stronger roots for the future. It's about merging those cherished elements into something new. As the sauce simmered, an idea bloomed. What if we start our own tradition, where we adapt something we love instead of discarding it? A shimmer of interest flickered in his eyes. Like a culinary mashup? Yes. Our history can forge our future. Each week, we can take a beloved dish and introduce one twist, turning it into something we both contribute to, guiding each other through this journey. Their culinary project had transformed into a symbolic act, a representation of their commitment to each other, a commitment she realized they had both yearned to rekindle. Moments later, laughter wrapped around them as they crafted the sauce, careful notes of flavors taking form, each addition reflecting their willingness to experiment. All right then, what about dessert? Jake inquired, a playful challenge in his tone. Got something in mind full of veggies? Meet me halfway. I have a twist on carrot cake. Their shared experience unfolded with every slice and dice, the kitchen brimming with laughter, emotions, and deepening trust. As they transitioned the conversation toward dessert, it became a vessel for honesty, too. Can dessert be the place to redefine expectation? Karen proposed. Are you thinking a healthier carrot cake? He asked, skepticism palpable. It can still be sweet while lighter. Let's incorporate whole wheat and reduce the sugar, keeping the essence of what we loved about it. Just because it's healthier doesn't mean it has to lack flavor. That could work, Jake murmured, hope finally edging into his tone. With a growing sense of energy, they delved deeper into the task at hand. Each layer constructed was a testament to their emerging partnership, and as Karen began incorporating her lighter ingredients, she realized their trust was blossoming, bit by bit. They were building something tangible, not just a meal or a recipe, but a renewed relationship grounded in shared efforts and respect. As they mixed eggs and spices, the challenges they had faced began to dissipate. The kitchen soon bubbled with excitement and confidence. Karen embraced the honesty of the moment. You know, all this time we've been worried about maintaining our comfort rather than embracing the lessons hidden within our meals, she confessed, her eyes meeting his as vulnerability intertwined with sincerity. He nodded, their sentiments finally aligning. This journey is scary, but it's also thrilling. I realized that the fear of losing what we've had kept me from looking forward to what we might gain. The air sparkled as the final touch was added to the dessert, an echo of hope resonating around them. Let's put on our plates what we each gained from this, Karen suggested as they poured the batter into a cake pan, ensuring that the transformation was a collective choice, a symbol of their evolution. Together, we can turn our past into a nutrient-rich future, Jake affirmed softly, a crucial realization tucked beneath his words, binding them closer together. As they slid the cake into the oven, the aroma enveloped them. A sweet promise of new beginnings was coming to fruition. Together, they embarked on a culinary journey that transcended ingredients, sparked by a willingness to embrace challenges and navigate through uncharted waters. In the heart of her kitchen, a sense of accomplishment surged through Karen. They were no longer confined by fear of change, they were becoming co-authors of their new legacy. And as the timer chimed, signaling the arrival of their creation, they understood that this was not just a meal. It was a marriage of past and future, a foundation built on trust that would continue to solidify through every shared recipe, every heartfelt conversation. Tomorrow, they would address the deeper conversations and fears together, but tonight held sacred space. The deep belly laugh around the table, the way flavors intertwined just as their lives had, each ingredient a step towards sacred love, as sizzling as the items on the stove before them. Karen felt contentment blossom within her. They had successfully crafted not only a new dish, but the essence of their evolving relationship, moving forward with renewed vigor together. Now, as the sweetness of success lingered in the air, she was prepared to face whatever came next alongside the person she cherished most, knowing that together they could achieve anything, even in the heart of the kitchen. You need to subscribe now to ensure you don't miss out on the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire you. This is the moment to show your support by leaving a like now to feed the algorithm and help more people find hope in their journeys. Comment below with your reactions and theories about this ending, as we want to hear your thoughts. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Each shared story brings us closer together on our journey of transformation.